Adding integers, part 2. The objectives of this video are to represent integers using the bean counters and to use the bean counters to develop rules for adding integers. As a reminder, the integer positive 1 can be represented using one yellow bean counter, and the integer negative 1 can be represented using one red counter. All of the other integers can be represented by some combination of yellow and/or red bean counters. In example 8, I would like to model positive 3 plus negative 2 using the bean counters. Start by moving 3 yellow counters into the workspace to represent positive 3. Then move 2 red counters into the workspace to represent negative 2. Remember from the first video that whenever a red counter and a yellow counter pair up, that represents the number 0. There are some 0 pairs in the workspace that need to be removed now. Removing the 0 pairs, whatever remains in the workspace is the answer to 3 plus negative 2. So 3 plus negative 2 equals positive 1. In example 9, I would like to model negative 2 plus 4 with the bean counters. Since the 2 is negative, move in 2 red counters. Then move in 4 yellow counters to represent the positive 4. Once again, there are 0 pairs. Let's remove the 0 pairs. And now whatever remains in the workspace is the answer to negative 2 plus 4. So negative 2 plus 4 equals positive 2. In example 10, let's model negative 6 plus 4 with the bean counters. Since the 6 is negative, start by moving 6 red counters into the workspace. And then move 4 yellow counters into the workspace to represent the positive 4. Let's remove 0 pairs from our workspace. And now whatever remains in the workspace is the answer to negative 6 plus 4. So negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. In example 11, let's model 4 plus negative 7 with the bean counters. Start by moving in 4 yellow counters. Then move in 7 red counters to represent the negative 7. Let's remove our 0 pairs from the workspace. Now count what remains in the workspace. There are 3 counters. They're red. So 4 plus negative 7 equals negative 3. Now pause the video while you write down a rule for what happens when you add two numbers that have different signs. Did you write something like this? When adding two numbers with different signs, subtract the number parts and keep the sign of the largest number. If you did very good. If you were to look this up in your math book, it may say something like this. When adding two numbers with different signs, subtract their absolute values, and keep the sign of the number with the largest absolute value. You can remember this rule plus the rule that we learned in part 1 that said when we add numbers that have the same signs, we add their number parts and keep their sign. You'll be able to add all sorts of numbers, whether they're positives or negatives.